All right, man, peace. So, brothers, well over a year or so ago, I received a message from a particular person who asked me whether or not I was going to cover the quote-unquote stand your ground law, which for most of us, we know that that's a hot button issue down in Florida because of many of the altercations that have transpired, whether it be Trayvon Martin or the brother last year by the name of McLaughlin who got killed by the Caucasian man named N.A.A.G.A, who took offense to McLaughlin's girlfriend parking in a handicapped spot. Of course, things went from there because even though the mainstream liberal media did not want to cover this portion of the case, the brother's girlfriend had an entitlement issue and decided that she could park wherever she wanted to, which of course attracted the demonic energy of N.A.A.G.A, and that led to the destruction of the brother McLaughlin, who, like a lot of cats who are overly infatuated with their woman, was unable to see certain things happening before they happen, because when cats are on point, they stop their woman from engaging in nonsense like that. People don't understand how simple things can spill out of control. But just to get back to the point, I was unable to cover the storyline involving the quote-unquote stand your ground law back then, but I did do a video on it a few months ago. And now I'm seeing a segment here on the CBS Morning News pertaining to the black version of the N.A.A.G.A, known as N.A.A.G.A, interestingly enough, founded by a brother by the name of Philip Smith. And I think that it's a wonderful thing because once again, it reinforces the concept of the black man as the originator, as the head, and having his own, which is supposed to be where our focus is. We have to stop always trying to beg the so-called white man to accept us in his organizations. We have to form our own so that we understand what it means to be the boss, to be the executor, to handle business, to see a so-called black man as a leader. That's the point. Not always trying to force yourselves into conventions that are not concerned with you. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Democrats are working to advance gun bills in Congress in an effort to pressure Republicans and the White House in the wake of several deadly mass shootings. It's a personal issue for many people, even those not touched by violence. 42% of Americans say there is a firearm in their home.
So 42% of Americans were willing to admit that they have a firearm in their home. That means what? That's a registered legal weapon. That's not counting the amount of people or the percentage of people who have a firearm in their home that's licensed and they just don't want to talk about it on TV. And that's certainly not to mention the people who have that illegal thing up in their house under the bed or in the dressing room drawer, wherever you have it stashed. So a lot of people out here are locked and loaded. And just to harken back to the video that I did, what I called the black man's version of the stand your ground law, or I believe the exact title of the video was The Black Man's Guide to the Stand Your Ground Law. Within that video, I asked the hypothetical question: why is it that so-called black men continue to try to seek to have these type of laws changed as opposed to just adapting to the law? If you're living in states where it's permissible for you to carry a licensed weapon, why would you not have one? Why would you not train with weaponry, with guns, as opposed to sitting back and hoping that these other people one day learn how to love you and treat you as an equal? Don't worry about that. Be focused on your own safety and the safety of your family. It doesn't mean that you have to walk up and down the street like Dirty Harry or some old Western looking to shoot someone. Of course, with great power comes great responsibility. But if you're given a civil right, then utilize that civil right and stop sitting back waiting and hoping for love that is never going to come. It's time that we start to mobilize ourselves in an effective way, in an authoritative way, not in a confrontational way. But part of having a ruling class mentality is having your sword by your side. There's nothing wrong with that.
Pew Research study, the country's largest and best-known gun rights association, the N.A.A.G.A, is losing board members, but another lesser-known gun organization is thriving. Omar Villafranca went to an Atlanta gun range to meet members of the National African American Gun Association, the largest minority gun group in the country.
Let me also say this. If you brothers try to research this quote-unquote black version of the National Rifle Association, you cannot find it on Wikipedia. So for those of you cats who are interested in writing essays or entries onto the Wikipedia page, if it so behooves you, this would be a great entry, because this organization has 30,000 members and they do not have a Wikipedia entry. Isn't that something? I wonder why that is. I wonder why they don't want so-called black people to know that there is an organization of gun owners that is geared towards them.
Philip Smith remembers the first time he went to a gun range, loaded his 9mm pistol, and pulled the trigger.
I felt free. I had a chance to kind of have some power in my hands.
Now, brothers, did you hear that? This cat said that the first time that he had a gun in his hands and pulled the trigger, he felt free and he felt empowered. To me, that's a reflection of what he may have been going through in the workplace. Once again, brothers, understand your own value and your self-worth. You do not have to subject yourself to an environment where you feel like you're being emasculated. I don't care if it's in the workplace or in your home life with your woman. You deserve respect as long as you respect others, and that starts with yourself. You have to have self-respect. You can't keep going to environments where you understand that you're being marginalized, you're being demeaned and spoken down to. It's going to lead to a lot of resentment. And eventually, if you're not very careful, you're going to start to have thoughts enter your head that are going to be harmful, not only for yourself, but for others. So see the signs, read the signs, and cut yourself off at the pass if you start to see yourself going down a pathway of self-destruction when you allow yourself to be emasculated. You're never supposed to tolerate that in any way, shape, or form from anyone. The first thing that you should always try to do is extricate yourself from an environment where you see that people are not concerned with your peace of mind and with the respect that they should show you as a human being. Cats tolerate these things, and it has a direct correlation with lower self-esteem and a poor self-image. And then they try to take out their anger on their brother because they feel like another so-called black man is the only person that they have the power to harm, and it's not going to be viewed as something that's cataclysmic. Don't take it out on anyone else. Remove yourself from environments that are not supportive of you like how they're supposed to be.
Smith turned that power into a passion and formed the National African American Gun Association, or N.A.A.G.A. The first.
You know what's interesting? That term N.A.A.G.A, for those of you who don't know, is an allusion to semi-divine or divine beings that are part serpent. Now, the motif of the serpent, we know, has an historicity that goes back to the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system, but also to the scriptures. The serpent was always associated with knowledge and wisdom. So that's why I found it very ironic that the acronym for his organization was N.A.G.A, or is N.A.G.A, pardon me.
Chapter was in Atlanta.
I didn't think I'd get more than 30 people.
In just 5 years, N.A.G.A has become the largest minority gun club in the country.
And once again, let me also reiterate that the image of the serpent is an image of wisdom, or a symbol of wisdom, on both the left-hand side in the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system, but also on the right-hand side. Christ himself makes an analogy between himself and the serpent that Moses rose up in the wilderness when you read John, the 3rd chapter.
There are more than 75 chapters with more than 30,000 members and over 90.
And brothers, let me say this also while we're at it. And it's not to joke around too much because this is a serious topic. But when you see these sisters at the gun range, they're not training to shoot a so-called white man or Ku Klux Klan member, a skinhead, or what have you. They training to shoot niggas. If you mess with them in your relationship with them, they locked and loaded, man. That's what they joining N.A.G.A for.
Of the members are black.
We have folks of every walk of life. Black doctors, gay, straight, Republicans, Democrats, you name it, we have it. We're not monolithic in why we're all here. We have different reasons. Why not join the N.R.A.?
Well, why join the N.R.A.? We have to start thinking more in the mode like this brother did in forming our own organizations and linking up in a way with people who understand our life experience and where we need to go as a people, as opposed to always trying to force our way into groups that do not want us. And I promise you, once these other demographics start to see that so-called black people are no longer concerned with their validation and acceptance, that is when their respect factor is going to grow. When you kiss someone's ass, that never leads to an increase in respect, only a lowering of respect.
NRA is good for some people that are having that perspective. Our perspective is for black folks.
Thank you, sir.
Nazita Davis joined N.A.G.A to learn how to protect herself. And she's not alone. More than 60% of N.A.G.A members are black women.
Of course, I'm not surprised at all. Brothers, once again, and there's no disrespect, I'm sure there's certain people are not going to like this. I really don't give a shit. But the vast majority of these so-called black women that you see training in marksmanship, that's for your black ass. It's not for the white man, okay? Nothing against them, but That's what's on their mind. The next nigga that pump them and dump them or fails to make his child support payments, he gonna get a hot slug in his ass from 80 yards away.
I'm usually looked at it like I'm a Martian. I mean, literally, if I...
Probably because of that crazy ass weave and that eye shadow you got on.
I get ready to go into the gun range, people are looking at me like, why is she here? Black women don't shoot. But
oh no, y'all shoot a lot. Y'all shoot your shot, y'all take pot shots, and y'all want to be shot callers. So y'all shoot a hell of a lot.
dude,
After black churchgoers were targeted in Charleston in 2015 and the recent shooting in El Paso targeting Mexicans, members say they're prepared to defend themselves.
Do you feel that in this political climate that white nationalists are emboldened to go after minority groups?
This is more mainstream liberal media race mongering. It's very clear that the point of this gun association is just so that so-called black people have a place to come to learn marksmanship and to defend themselves. But he has to inject the political aspect because they're continuously trying to push the Trump is the worst president ever dynamic, and that he is actionizing or he is weaponizing Caucasian conservatives against so-called black people when he's really not doing anything that has not been done before. If people for some reason think that Trump is making Caucasian hillbillies in West Virginia or Arkansas hate black people when they never did, you're sadly mistaken. But once again, the mainstream liberal media is desperate to figure out a way to get as many voters to the polls in 2020 because they know they have very weak candidates. No one is concerned about the political aspect. If you're going to the gun range, it should be so that you can improve your marksmanship, protect yourself and your family. But he's trying to push the quote-unquote race war dynamic. And that's something that they have to do in the mainstream liberal media because they're desperate right now. But just listen to her answer. She's going to confirm what I told you brothers already about most of the sisters that are at the gun range. She's there for niggas. She ain't there for the white man.
I need this protection.
I do. Like I said, even though I generalize, it's not just crime in our communities, but it's also a white nationalist. I mean,
You heard what she said? She said it's crime in our communities, but also, oh yeah, you know, the white man too. He can catch a hot one too, but these bullets really for these niggas. Let me wind this back a little bit.
Do you feel that in this political climate that white nationalists are emboldened to go after minority groups and you need this protection?
I do. Like I said, even though I generalize, it's not just crime in our communities, but it's also a white nationalist. I mean, I do believe they're emboldened. And yes, I want to be armed. I'm not going there without a fight.
I feel you on that one.
Look at it that way, and so by being able to protect ourselves, by training properly and getting our practice and learning how to defend ourselves, at least we will be able to fight back if we are attacked from white supremacists or white nationalists.
Or just anyone in general.
Promotes the Second Amendment and social justice. But Smith says he's aware of the dangers of being black and legally armed in America. He pointed to the Philando Castile case in Minnesota, where Castile, who was licensed to carry a gun, was shot and killed by a police officer during a 2016 traffic stop. N.A.G.A immediately condemned the shooting, while Smith points out,
while her boyfriend is bleeding to death, the best thing that this female could figure out to do is go on Facebook Live and turn it into a TV show. Wow.
Prominent gun rights groups like the National Rifle Association did not.
Them not speaking up says more to us than anything.
Right, but it really should not be saying anything new. We have a very bad habit as so-called black people of expecting things from other races. We're constantly expecting them to treat us in a way that we should not expect. We should expect things from ourselves and from each other, not from them.
Are you in agreement with that? I couldn't be silent.
Why would the N.A.A.G.A not be in agreement with what the cop did? There's no way in the world that they could speak out against law enforcement. We have to understand what the vast majority of their constituency is, that being Caucasian conservatives from Middle America. Those are just facts. The N.A.A.G.A cannot go against law enforcement, at least not overtly. There's no way in the world that that was ever going to happen. So it's not a human issue with them. It's about who are their lobbyists, who are their constituents. Bottom line.
This came out of my eyes when I heard this brother got shot. If you're an organization that wants to get black folks to back you up, that's the best way. Speak out when you see injustice. Don't sit.
Right, but in turn, they're going to alienate the vast majority of their members. So that's why what you're doing is the correct thing. We have our own organization. They have theirs. It's not a big deal. It's not a problem.
Like you don't know what's happening. Because we're a very intelligent group of folks.
The group is talking about getting political and endorsing candidates, which could make them a political force.
Well, here's the problem with that. And I mentioned this in other videos as well. Brothers, we have to understand what politics is. What a great politician does is he represents the wants and the needs of his constituency. We cannot wait for a politician to appear for the public and then say, let's side with that person. What a strong community does is they train that potential political candidate from childhood. They groom them to become what they become as an adult. They don't wait until somebody pops up out of nowhere at 35, 40 years old and says, okay, I like him. Let's go vote for him. Because it's all corporate controlled. If so-called black people want to enter the political fray and be taken seriously, we have to start thinking more on a chess level and not on a checkers level. Put aside the emotions and start thinking with a three-dimensional mentality. That's the only way that we're going to be able to compete and win. The point of competition is to win, not to come out equal / in a tie.
But they're not there yet. It's something they'll discuss at their first national conference next year. For CBS This Morning, Omar Villafranca, Atlanta.
This nigga left me. Bang, bang.
That video of the Castile shooting is still very, very painful and difficult to watch. And I thought he raised a really good point, you know.
Yes, and by the way, Philando Castile was gunned down like that while Obama was still in the White House. Had that been Trump in the White House, there would have been all of these silly and inordinate correlations to his presidency and how it's emboldened police and all this nonsense. Point being is this: nothing has changed for the so-called black man. And when I say nothing has changed, I'm talking about how our conditions or this captivity for us is perceived. I'm not talking about or trying to compare how so-called blacks are living today to Jim Crow, or definitely not to quote-unquote so-called slavery. I'm just saying that the condition, the mental condition of the so-called black man has not changed today. We're still in captivity, and we have to understand that. If we do not have our own home base, we don't have a source of power. That's the bottom line to that.
Speaking out against it, the N.A.A.G.A had nothing to say at the time when that shooting made national news.
30,000 numbers, they could be a political force.
I think any coverage of gun owners is useful because so many people who don't own guns, which are the majority of Americans, they're mystified.
Allegedly, the majority of Americans do not own guns. I don't believe that.
Who these people are. So it's a great window into that life.
You know who they are. Two former...
But anyway, brothers, that's basically it on that. Once again, it was a mild surprise that they did not have an entry on Wikipedia. But when I thought about it, I said, why would they? They're not an organization that people are going to want to promote unless they're desperate. The CBS Morning News, led by the super liberal Caucasian Jewish woman Susan Zirinsky, they're desperate to get Trump out of the White House. So if that means that they have to shine a little light, give a little exposure to a group like N.A.A.G.A, they're willing to do that. And once again, if any brothers are interested in creating an entry on Wikipedia for them, and that's something that is right up your alley, suits your fancy, knock yourself out. That'd be a great thing. So peace.